I started painting about 15 years ago, mostly the last 6 or 8 years here in Rogers. I started off wanting to paint very contemporary because that's the kind of art that I like. But as it turned out, as you can see, I've kind of moved around and have different styles. I love contemporary art, but I am enjoying doing portraits and mostly figurative art. I love to paint women, children. I love abstract backgrounds. My journey into art started probably 20 years ago. I got a late start. Mostly it was with every art gallery I went to or every art museum. I started really looking at the art and enjoying it so much. The textures, the colors, the movement. And for probably 3 or 4 years, I would tell my husband, I could do that. And he always said, but you don't. So I finally stopped procrastinating and bought my first paint and brushes and pencils. And I was kind of self-taught for about 3 years, probably a little bit floundering around because I was working full-time and didn't have time to go take classes. Once I moved to Rogers about 8 years ago, I hooked up with Studio 7 in Tanya, and I haven't stopped painting since. I've fallen in love with it. So I'm trying to make up for lost time because I started so late in life. I paint a lot because I'm retired now. Again, every piece of art that we own in our house is very contemporary, and I love it. I really, really, really would like to paint loose. But my background is a project manager for about 16 years, so I'm very detail-oriented. So I find that when I'm painting, I just keep painting and painting and painting until I get all the fine details. Sometimes it turns out really great, but when I'm trying to be loose, it's a little bit frustrating. So I tend to experiment a lot, and I call it playing. When I paint these, this isn't necessarily hard, but you got to be into it and know what you're doing. There's no experimentation. When I'm playing with the paints, I'm squirting it on, I'm wiping it off, I'll use alcohol to remove it, I'll add pen, I'll add charcoal, acrylic or oil. It doesn't matter. I just like to try it all. Consequently, my studio is very full. This series that I have hanging here will be hanging in 225 Gallery for the Bentonville Film Festval art show. This is kind of near and dear to my heart because my daughter went on a mission trip to Ethiopia. And it was with an organization called Hope in Ethiopia. And it's a nonprofit, and basically it's a group that cares for child-headed households where the parents have either passed away or they might be terminally ill. And she went there and she came back with 1,000 pictures. And so I was looking through all of her pictures, and she would point to each one. She knew all these people. She worked with them. And it was so inspiring, and it touched my heart. So I told her I wanted to paint a series of her new friends, and these will be donated to, well, I say they'll be donated. When they sell, that will go to Hope in Ethiopia to help them raise awareness. And it's pretty near and dear to my heart. When I started this series, the first photo that caught my eye was of this woman. This painting is called A Cup Full of Grace because people are so generous there and loving. They would invite anyone into their home, but all they have to offer is coffee. So that one caught my eye first. I think it was because of her face. But then as I started working, I zeroed in on these two young ladies. And the challenge there was to get their skin, the right tones, and to show the light underneath it and the texture, again, in the background. Actually, the background was not hard, but I was very pleased because it's just kind of an organic, natural look. So all the concentration came in on their skin and their eyes and their lips. And it did take a long time. This one, Cupful of Grace, is very detailed. And oddly, I find that easier to do than the loose, the abstracts. To me, that's more of a challenge. So this was a challenge to get her dress in there, but I didn't necessarily want it to be pretty. I wanted it to show their life and how they were. So the important things in this painting is, one, her coffee, because that's very common there, that they serve coffee to their guests. And I think it's popcorn that they serve their guests. So I took everything out of the background besides that, just to feature her more and bring her forward. The only other thing I can say is I love doing these, but I love playing with color and textures. I love it. That's like a playground for me. Go into an art store and you see all the supplies, and then you just start grabbing them and then spread them on paper or canvas. So I probably should stick to one style, but I probably never will because I have too much fun doing what I do.